Over 70% of the CIA's entire budget and operational history remained completely classified for decades, and the fragments that finally leaked out revealed a shadow government operating entirely outside the law, accountable to almost no one, running experiments on unwitting citizens, toppling elected governments, and rewriting the rules of modern geopolitics in ways that still shape your world today. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover how a small peacetime intelligence agency born from the ashes of World War II became the most powerful covert force in human history. You will learn about the operations that worked, the ones that catastrophically failed, and the one program so disturbing that Congress literally could not believe it was real when they first heard about it. The truth about the CIA is stranger, darker, and more consequential than any spy novel ever written. To understand the CIA, you have to understand the world that created it. Before 1947, the United States had no permanent foreign intelligence service. The Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, had been the wartime spy apparatus under William Donovan, but President Truman disbanded it after Japan surrendered. Within 2 years, he deeply regretted that decision. The Soviet Union was expanding aggressively across Eastern Europe. The Cold War was beginning to take shape, and the United States had virtually no intelligence infrastructure to respond. The National Security Act of 1947 changed everything. Signed into law on July 26, it created the National Security Council and, critically, the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA's original mandate was straightforward on paper: coordinate and analyze foreign intelligence. It was explicitly not supposed to conduct domestic operations. That legal boundary would be crossed repeatedly in the decades that followed. The agency's early years were shaped by one overwhelming fear: Soviet communism spreading globally. This fear justified almost everything that came next. Within its first decade, the CIA had already moved far beyond intelligence analysis into what officials called covert action, the deliberate, secret manipulation of foreign governments, economies, and populations. The first major test came in Iran in 1953. Operation Arjux remains one of the most consequential covert operations in American history. Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry, threatening British and American petroleum interests. The CIA, working alongside British intelligence, orchestrated a coup. They funded street protests, bribed military officers, and destabilized the government. Mossadegh was overthrown. The Shah was installed and given full power. Iran's brief democratic experiment was extinguished. The blowback from that single decision is still being felt in American-Iranian relations today, more than 70 years later. 1 year later, the CIA repeated the playbook in Guatemala. President Jacobo Arbenz had implemented land reforms that threatened the United Fruit Company, a powerful American corporation with deep political connections. Operation PBSES in 1954 deployed a combination of psychological warfare, air strikes, and armed insurgents to drive Arbenz from power. A military junta took control. Guatemala descended into decades of civil war that killed an estimated 200,000 people. These were not rogue operations. They were approved at the highest levels of the United States government. That is the part that history often glosses over. But here is what nobody talks about. While the CIA was busy toppling governments abroad, it was simultaneously running experiments on American soil that violated every conceivable ethical and legal standard. Project MKUltra was the CIA's covert mind control research program, officially running from 1953 to 1973. The program explored whether the agency could use drugs, hypnosis, psychological torture, and other techniques to control human behavior, essentially creating programmable agents or breaking enemy combatants. LSD was administered to subjects without their knowledge or consent, including mental patients, prisoners, and ordinary citizens. At least one confirmed death resulted directly from the program. Frank Olson, a CIA scientist, died after being dosed with LSD without his knowledge. The official story called it a suicide. His family has disputed that for decades. When the Senate's Church Committee investigated MKUltra in 1975, CIA Director Richard Helms had already ordered the destruction of most program files in 1973, anticipating the investigation. Roughly 20,000 documents survived only because they had been misfiled in a financial records building. What those documents revealed shocked even seasoned congressional investigators. Subprograms numbered in the hundreds. Universities, hospitals, and prisons across the United States had participated, often unknowingly serving as laboratories. The same Church Committee investigation uncovered another disturbing program, Operation COINTELPRO. Though that was technically an FBI operation, the CIA had its own version called Chaos, designed to monitor and infiltrate American anti-war groups and civil rights organizations. The CIA spied on journalists. It compiled files on members of Congress. It conducted surveillance on American citizens with no foreign connection whatsoever, which was explicitly illegal under its charter. How did the agency justify this? The logic was always the same. National security. The threat was real enough that normal rules did not apply. That reasoning, once accepted internally, became a license for almost anything. Internationally, the 1960s and 1970s brought operations of extraordinary scale and moral complexity. The agency ran a secret war in Laos that at its peak involved over 30,000 fighters, an army the American public knew almost nothing about. It attempted to assassinate Fidel Castro using methods so elaborate and bizarre that they read more like dark comedy than serious intelligence work. Plans included exploding cigars, a poisoned diving suit, and a seashell rigged with explosives. None succeeded. Castro outlived every American president who tried to remove him. In Chile in 1973, the CIA played a significant supporting role in the coup that overthrew democratically elected socialist President Salvador Allende. General Augusto Pinochet came to power. His regime tortured and disappeared thousands of political opponents. Declassified documents confirmed CIA involvement in destabilizing the Allende government, though the extent of direct operational involvement in the coup itself remains debated by historians. The pattern here is unmistakable. Every intervention followed the same architecture. Identify a government threatening American interests, whether economic, ideological, or geopolitical. Classify the situation as a national security emergency. Deploy covert assets. When democracy produced inconvenient results, remove democracy. By the 1980s, the CIA's operations had grown in scale and brazenness. The Iran-Contra affair exposed a secret network in which CIA Director William Casey, National Security Advisor John Poindexter, and Operative Oliver North facilitated arms sales to Iran, then used the profits to fund Nicaraguan Contra rebels, despite an explicit congressional ban on exactly that kind of funding. When the scandal broke, it revealed not just illegal activity but an entire shadow foreign policy apparatus operating in deliberate defiance of elected lawmakers. What does all of this tell us about the nature of intelligence agencies in democratic systems? That is the question historians and political scientists have wrestled with for decades. The CIA was built on a fundamental paradox. Democracy requires transparency and accountability. Effective intelligence requires secrecy and deniability. Those two requirements are in permanent, irresolvable tension. The agency resolved that tension by consistently choosing secrecy, even when secrecy meant breaking its own legal mandate, experimenting on its own citizens, and undermining the democratic values it claimed to be defending. The post-September 11th era brought the CIA new resources and new controversies. Enhanced interrogation programs, later widely described as torture by Senate investigators, were conducted at black sites around the world. The 2014 Senate Intelligence Committee report on CIA detention and interrogation ran to nearly 7,000 pages. Its executive summary alone described waterboarding, sleep deprivation, confinement in small boxes, and threats against detainees' families. The CIA's own internal assessments had questioned whether these techniques produced reliable intelligence. The program continued anyway. None of this diminishes the genuine, often invisible work done by intelligence professionals who operate within legal boundaries and serve a critical national security function. But the secret history of the CIA is inseparable from the history of what happens when institutions believe they are above accountability. The programs did not emerge from nowhere. They emerged from a culture of unchecked authority, sustained by classification systems that kept the public permanently in the dark. The arc of the CIA's history is ultimately a story about power without oversight, and what that power consistently chooses to do when it believes no one is watching. Before you go, if you learned something new today, hit that like button right now.